Hello everyone, and welcome to my first ever iRacing video. Now, iRacing have cooked with this week in sports cars, because as you can see, we have the Fanatec GT3 Challenge at Indianapolis, which is, in my opinion, one of the funnest car and track combos on the whole service. So the race starts in less than 4 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and register and get to qualifying. Alright, here we are for qualifying, and as I come out to my first lap, I'm going to come down all the way down the front straightaway. And the thing about this track, Indy, with the GT3s, is that it's very, very fun, in my opinion, which is why I say that they cooked. And the thing about the Porsche that I really like is that you can really, really brake late into the corners, which is something that will play into my hands when I'm racing side to side with people later. But ideally, you want to try and head out more towards the exit. Then here in this corner, you want to brake towards the middle part of the grass, so the second grass patch. Then here you want to use all the track available, because that's the other thing, especially with the fixed series. The car is very, very tight. It does not want to turn at all, so that's something you're gonna have to coax it into doing. And you also want to try and maybe run over the curbs just a little bit to possibly angle you towards the corner. But here we come to complete my first lap. And as I come across the line, very narrowly avoid hitting the wall, and as I come across the line, I will jump briefly up to 7th position before I get pushed back further down the grid by faster drivers, as I only ran a 1:25.7. And typically here, you don't want to run very wide. Like there, the car wants to run wide and the exit of turn 1, but you cannot let it. And onto the back straightaway here, the long back straightaway. Like I said, keeping off the brakes as long as possible, then braking as long and as hard as you can, typically about as hard as you can, then using all of the track, all of this extra curbing here, which is not out of bounds. It's not out of bounds unless you go your outside tires into the white lines. Then here again, I get a little too happy on the curbs a bit. Then here have a pretty good last corner. Have a little bit of wheel spin despite the traction control, which will see me, as we end our lap, that will see me up to 9th position, but that is not my final qualifying position. So that's qualifying done. Definitely a bit more time to gain, as you see we're right now in 11th, with still 3 minutes to go in qualifying. So yeah, definitely a lot more time to gain. Ideally, you want to be in the low 24s, so I got to eke out some more stuff in the 2 hours between this race and the next race, but I don't know, let's see how this race goes. And you can see here, I got very close to getting a 1x. It was very fortunate that that was not a 1x. So on to the first race we go here. I'm going to be starting in 13th on the inside lane, which is pretty good if you're in the Porsche, especially because you can really send it into turn 1, which is what I'm going to try to do here. As we get the race going, the green flag comes out, and we are away and racing, and immediately I have a run on the Porsche ahead of me. I tried to maybe side draft him heading into the first corner and use the draft of the cars ahead. There's a lot of dust being thrown up by the cars ahead, and I'm going to brake a little early, no, way early, just to avoid getting rammed into and slammed. As you see, a car spun off, and we're right behind the Porsche with Jesus is King on the spoiler that I'm going to go and overtake. By the way, Jesus is King is a very, very true message, which makes me even more ashamed of what happens right here. We run onto the curb and unfortunately take him out there. Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. We'll go over that a bit more in a second. But I'm being passed by the Mustang, and then here, this McLaren very narrowly avoids wiping us out, which I'm very, very thankful for. And yes, we've had an eventful first lap as I'm struggling to hold on to my position here. I go way, way wide in the second to last corner, and then someone else comes off in front of me, incidentally, another Porsche. And as we come across the line, that moves us up into 9th position, which is a very, very good opening lap, even if it was just lucky breaks from people ahead of us going off. So as we continue here, we see a bunch of cars up in front of me that are all, hopefully, going to battle with each other, and we have a lapped car already, despite the fact that it's 1 lap into the race. Sorry, 2 laps into the race. Basically almost 1 lap, though. We're going to head down the back straightaway, try to get some of the draft. Nothing really much else happens. As I'm trying to hang on to these Porsches, I get a 1X from going over the curb, which I don't know how that was a 1X personally. If my qualifying run was not a 1X, then that one should not have been an off-track. As we come here, brake at the 400 meter yet again, get very, very close to Jason in front of us. But yet again, no real gains to be had. He's going to go a bit wide, but you can get away with that a little bit here, unless you're in qualifying. But during the race, you can get away with that just fine. We're going to run through the chicane yet again. I'm still trying to hold on to the draft. Then right here, this whole gaggle of cars starts battling with each other, which is very, very delightful to see for me, because that means, hopefully, easy spots to be had. As there's a bunch of moves going on, and we're now too wide. There's a Ferrari ahead of us now. As we sniff the draft from Jason ahead of us, he's going to look to the inside of the Ferrari ahead of him. As someone darts out, way out to the inside, and I'm going to try to go around the outside. I almost get there, but not quite. And this is really the most action that we're going to see in this race here, is this moment, and I know that. So I take my opportunity and send it down the inside, heading into this little horseshoe bend. And now we're going side by side into the chicane, which I back out of a little too late and end up running over the curb, clattering over it, and having to defend for my position from the Ferrari and another Porsche behind, Colin Oliver, who almost goes up around my outside, but fortunately does not manage to do that, as that would have made, probably would have made mincemeat of me and my aura that I have here. We're going to get another car spun, which is where another bit of problems are going to come. As you can see, we're already up to 8x before everything, and now we're going to try and go on the inside of the Ferrari. I'm going to sneak up the inside, and this time though I've learned my lesson, so I'm going to wait until the back straightaway. Then right here on the back straightaway, the Ferrari makes one of the strangest moves I've ever seen. So I'm drafting to his inside, and then the second I move up, he moves up with me and then brakes about 100 meters earlier. Oh. And that unfortunately involves another car. So very, very unfortunate. And that gives us damage.
Oh my gosh.
You can hear I'm very, very disappointed with that. I don't really know what I could have done there to avoid that incident, which is what made it even more frustrating. And we're on lap 10, coming to lap 11. Colin Oliver is getting very, very big in my mirrors as we head down the front straightaway. He's going to get a draft, and I'm going to look a little bit to the inside before going full defensive. He's going to try to cut around the outside, but he's not able to. He and I both have front-end damage from previous incidents. So we see someone getting thanked for so kindly pushing someone else off track, most likely. We're heading through the chicane, then onto the back straightaway, with the Porsche still in tow, and still very much in drafting distance, and if he's in drafting distance, striking distance, because of how late the Porsches can brake. You can see just how much he gains on me in the braking zone, but then I ended up getting it back, mostly on corner exit, which is my main strength compared to him. So using all the track here. And as we come to the end of the straightaway, he's going to try everything he can to make himself big in my mirrors, but I know that as long as I keep braking where I've been braking, then things should be fine. He almost gets to my outside, does get to my outside just a little bit, but then he backs away and loses a lot of time. I don't know if that was aero wash or something else, but he got very, very tight through turn 2. And that is what caused him to wash up the track so suddenly and allow me a bit more breathing room here, as he is now about 4/10 behind, heading onto the back straightaway. But yet again, he still manages to get closer, and we're now coming here to 2 laps to go, and I'm going very defensive. I completely mess up that corner, which somehow he follows me into, but he's still very, very close, only 2/10 behind us now, which is very, very much in drafting distance. So come down the front straightaway, he's going to move to my outside, and I think he knows that this is it, because he brakes a lot later and gets to my outside, which becomes my inside this time around. But I managed to get the acceleration and squeeze him just that little bit, which forces him down and manages to take away the threat. But he is still going to have the draft down the back straightaway, and he's much, much closer on the back straightaway than he was on the front straightaway. And we saw earlier his providence in braking in this area. So he's going to go to my outside. I'm going to move back up. He's going to go all the way around the outside. He's going to try to, rather. Doesn't end up making it work. I cut him off pretty bad there, but it was hard racing, hard defense. And here we're going to see another Porsche, Cyril Herber, go off, which is what allows me a bit more breathing room, because he had to take much more caution to that than I did, referring to Colin Oliver. And now we're heading on to the final lap of the race. I horrifically mess up, even have to go into first gear temporarily there as we come to the final lap. And now Colin Oliver and Ramaswamy are both in striking distance. So we're going to come to the end of the front straightaway here. He's going to try to go clean around my outside. I managed to hit the curb once again and squeeze him down, but this time he's going to keep it steady on the outside, but then backs out of it to the point where we wouldn't have to go side by side through the chicane, thankfully. Now we're heading through the chicane. He is still going to have the draft down the back straightaway. Cyril's going to have his draft, and Ramaswamy's going to have his draft. So this really became a 4-car battle for 7th position. And I'm going to brake perhaps way too early, and he's going to go around my outside, Colin. And I don't manage to get the cut back. And I get past for 7th position as Cyril takes a look up the inside, and I'm trying to do whatever I can. And I get to the inside of him, and then Cyril throws us for a loop going 3 wide, and that forces Colin out of it. And then Cyril bumps me coming out of the final corner. I get tight, which doesn't allow me to get a run on him coming down the straightaway, and we end up finishing 8th, which is a bit of a disappointing result, if I'm going to be honest. This incident right here, I'm not quite sure about, like, really who's to blame, because we're both going here, and then he runs over the grass. I'm trying to leave as much space as possible, but then eventually, like, the angle is not lined up, and I'm just planning to go straight. I have a huge lift here, but I still end up hitting him and spinning him out. But he did sort of put himself in that position by basically, like, going down to the point where I had to launch myself over the curb. So I don't really know what to think about this, but I'll let you guys decide who was at fault. And then this incident with the Ferrari as well. I mean, I don't know. I was trying to stay with him as long as possible, and then the millisecond I jump to make my move, he moves with me as well. And then almost instantly gets on the brakes as I'm still trying to dart back to the inside, because I don't want to be pushed more to the outside here. So Like, I know it might look like I'm trying to go and intentionally hit him, but if you brake, like, directly in front of someone, like, especially because we're way before the braking zone here. Like, we are way before the braking zone. Like, ideally, you'd be braking, like, over here, which is what I'm prepared for, and then he's braking all the way back here. So I don't really know what he was expecting to happen. Let's see. Jake Van Laer, I don't really know what he was expecting to happen here besides him getting punted off. And unfortunately, his, his idiocy took out Robert Peterson. In my opinion, like, he's to blame for this, because, like, you just can't do that. You just can't block someone and then brake so early after. Like, you have to give them time to react. Like, watch from my cockpit view again. Yeah, I really don't know what he was expecting, to be honest, besides this. Like, this was really the only outcome that could have come from that. And unfortunately, Robert Peterson had to be involved in it too. I didn't lose as much safety rating as I was expecting.
2 hours later.
Alright, we are back for the 5:15 race. I definitely want to try and finish better than the last race, but more importantly, I want to try and get out of this with a big fat 0x, because that last race was just horrible for my safety rating, to be quite honest. So yeah, those are my goals heading into this race, and we shall see if I accomplish them. Alright, here we are for the second qualifying session of the day for the 5:15 p.m. race. Again, getting out of the pits and warming the tires as much as you can as we come here to start our first lap. And I immediately 1x myself, which would have invalidated my lap. So that was just great, knowing that the tire prep didn't really work on the opening lap. Then, here heading into the braking zone, I get way to the inside, cut down to the curb, and I'm able to get so much acceleration all the way to the curbs of basically either end of the circuit. And coming out here, using as much road as you possibly can, clattering over the curbs before we head down into this braking zone right here. Downshifting into first gear, which is something you typically only want to do in qualifying. Making sure to use as much of these curbs as possible before cutting down. And trying not to dip two wheels into that section there. And keeping it pinned throughout oval turn 2 into oval turn 1, and then this little chicane right here in the dugout of oval turn 1. Again, using as much curb. That's really what this track is about, is using as much curb as possible. As we come across the front straightaway to start our final lap and finish our first lap, we're going to cross the line and briefly go to the top of the board, but then get pushed down by faster lap times as I go way wide in turn 1. And then manage to cut all the way to the outside here, almost lose the rear end, or get the rear end slightly loose under braking. And again, just completely run straight over these curbs before braking and heading in, this time only downshifting to second gear to give us slightly better acceleration, and trying to use as much of the curves as possible, though not really utilizing as much of them for this past lap. You can see on the green delta there we actually lose time. And going into this last little section here, run way wide, left two wheels onto the curbs of the outer edge of the circuit, and then run really wide there, not even touching the curb, that second to last corner, before we come across the line. Still somehow find an improvement, but only about 1.5 tenths worth. And we come across the line to stay third fastest. out of a lower split field, I will admit, but still. As we look through the qualifying times here and wait for the race to begin and we grid, immediately the Ford Mustang in front of us begins going on and off of the brakes, which I don't like too much because I almost run into him several times, which I very nicely said in chat. And as we're coming here, a very slow start, but the Ford does eventually get things going, and I managed to follow him way better than Martin Rodrigo did in the other Shell Pennzoil Ford Mustang. I'm moving down to the inside to try and defend against any dive bombs from further behind, and I almost run into the leader, Adam, because of how early he brakes there because of the Ford on cold tires. So really I'm doing as much as I can to try and stay with the leader because I know that he's vulnerable right now on those cold tires and that I can get him with the late braking capabilities of the Porsche. As we head down the back straightaway, I'm really tucking into his draft. You're going to see the difference in braking here as you can see just how much I catch up to him and almost am forced to make a late send because of how early he has to brake because of the cold tires on the Ford Mustang. And here, Martin finally manages to get past me with a late send to the inside. No harm really doing though, just fair racing, fair hard racing. And I'm going to try to get him back here on the inside, or at least force him to go slightly wide, which I do successfully, but he still manages to retain the position. As we come across the line to complete lap 1, I remain in 3rd position, lucky not to have lost more positions there. And I'm starting to get into a rhythm of following these Ford Mustangs as we come across the line. And you can see once again, especially in this zone, just how late the Porsche can brake as I almost run into the back of Martin there and the Ford Mustang ahead of me. And immediately, Shelby Blackstock is on my bumper, searching for a move because of that. Nothing really else happens for this next lap before Shelby manages to make a late dive bomb on me. He thinks that he can get some position from this and can go catch the leaders, so he decides to pass me. Goes all the way down to the inside wall before darting back up again. I'm going to try to do what I can to make a move here, heading into the braking zone. A late send, but not late enough. I get right up to his rear bumper though, and I'm starting to try and apply heavy pressure. Especially as we head down towards this next braking zone, which I know will be a point that he is vulnerable on, and I just need to maximize it no matter what happens. So heading through the chicane in his draft, trying to stay as much in his draft as possible and not cut out of it. Though I am a bit further back than I was on the front straightaway. But I will still send it to the inside, though brake, but sometimes that is enough, and he goes way, way wide. But I'm stuck behind him through this section. I don't manage to pass him right then and there, which forces me to stay behind him. I do get a really, really good exit, but he manages to get a similar one because the Ford Mustang just accelerates better out of the corners. And at this point, I'm wondering if it's even worth it, as I bump into him, if it's even worth it to try and fight this guy, or if he can lead us up to the race leaders, Adam and Martin, up in 1st and 2nd. And I don't get as good of a run out of the last corner, and I get damage on the front bumper from that collision between me and Shelby. And I'm flashing my lights, just trying to put as much pressure as I can, as I almost take him out heading into that corner via the late braking. And again, I'm still trying to remain as close to him as I possibly can, though it is very difficult to do so with how fast the Mustang is here. And then right here, Adam actually goes and gets passed by Martin, which hopefully allows me to sort of come back into this battle, into this fight for the lead. That's what I'm hoping it'll do. As I go a little wide through there, that certainly won't help me.
There's an incident behind.
But still, we might be more back in this fight than we thought. As I continue to more so follow these guys and sort of follow the leader, nothing really much else happens. Before this, Shelby decides to make a move on Adam Kozel, and suddenly Adam has gone from first to third and is now under attack from me. And I get a good launch and manage to pass in the same way that Shelby passed me on the inside of that corner there. And now it's just straight defense from here on out, because I don't really have the pace to catch the two leaders, but I can still hold on to the podium as I go a little wide there. And there are a whole gaggle of cars behind me that are waiting for me to make any kind of mistake. As I come across the line, Adam's still very large in my mirrors, and with a huge run combined with the draft, he's going to get right up to my outside, even ahead of me a bit, but I'm going to get him back under the braking zone. Leave space for him on the inside, but still manage to get the better exit. And now he's under attack from the Corvette behind, which I know now, especially as the Corvette washes wide, now is the time to run and hopefully make off with third position and not really be able to have any pressure from behind. But a few laps later, Adam does get right behind me yet again, but brakes super early, doesn't manage to get to my outside around this section of corners because of the braking limitations of the Ford Mustang. So I still managed to retain third position, at least for this lap being, with only 7 minutes left in the race. Then here we're going to jump ahead to the straightaway. He is once again on my outside. The Corvette has faded into the background, and yet again I'm able to outbrake him by a huge margin, and he's has to switch. And I don't know if he gets like aero wash or something, but he washed way wide in one of those corners. As we come here to start the final lap, he again has a huge run on the outside, so much so that he's able to clear me and go to the inside before the braking zone begins, and we swap inside and outside. And now I know that I have to get a pass done, and get a pass done quick, because if I let him run away with this, I'll never forgive myself. And so I dart to the inside, but remembering lessons learned from the previous race, I choose to lift off just a slight bit so that I can get his draft and not go side by side through the chicane. Into the straightaway and heading towards the braking zone we go. I go to his outside because I don't want to go to the inside from that shallow of an angle, but he still manages to retain the position. Now I'm directly behind him, and he does wash wide, preventing me from making a move like I did to him before. So now I get a much better exit out of the last corner, and so I know it's about getting as much to his inside as I can. So I get to his inside, we both brake, and then he just decides to take the MotoGP layout for some reason. I don't know if that was considered like the new track limitations or whatever. He didn't do that on any of the laps before, but he decided to take the MotoGP layout, which gave us third place in the race.
You have about 5 laps of fuel left.
Get in there. Oh my gosh.
All right, let's check it.
What a race. Oh my goodness.
Solid work.
Let's go back to see what happened on the last lap there. Oh my gosh, I had lots of damage. Alright. So, I tried to get as much to the inside as possible. I brake, and then he just goes off by himself. Sometimes just the mental image of someone being there to your inside is enough. And that was enough to get me the podium. What a race. Oh my gosh. That was a very, very fun race. That right there is what iRacing is all about. Just fun battles and everything like that. The first race, this definitely went a lot better than the first race, especially since we gained back some of our safety rating and we continued to gain iRating. So that's nice.
1 day later.
We are back for day 2. As you can see, I've got a different shirt on, and I'm in quite a good mood, which that mood will hopefully not be dashed by the events about to unfold. Alright, coming across the line,
Green, green, green.
and I immediately 1x myself as I come across the line to start my first qualifying lap. Not much else different, although I have to lift off severely in that area of the track because I wash incredibly wide. The car gets incredibly tight. And that's going to be really the theme for this whole qualifying lap, is that the car is just incredibly tight for this first lap. As you see there, not really wanting to turn, and here especially, with me having to crank the wheel incredibly to the left and right to try and get it to turn, and washing all the way to the curb there naturally, and then here just completely blowing the chicane, which I was not happy about at all. As we come across the line, that will be a 125.5, so my worst lap that I've done by far so far this video, at least in qualifying or after I had learned the track. So this next lap is actually going to be much better than that. As you can see on the dashboard, an incredible time up, more than a second up. As we come across the line, I will briefly
Checkered flag.
pop up into 3rd place, which is where I managed to qualify
1 to go. Next time by.
3rd somehow, as we grid here for this next race and immediately start warming the tires, as I do not want a repeat of what happened in qualifying to happen during the race. And here you can see that everyone doing it too. A much faster start, and the Mustang decides to get going in the lead, Caleb, and I'm immediately tucked into the draft of Ramaswamy here in the Ferrari, trying to make any moves that I can heading down into turn 1, though being
Right side.
and brave enough to go around the outside as I make slight contact with Ramaswamy there as he washes wide off the curb. I cut back under him for the hairpin here, hairpin-ish corner. It's not really a hairpin, I don't really know how to describe it. And then lift off to not go side by side through the chicane and hope that I can get a move down the back straightaway as I tuck into his draft here and into the braking zone. Look to his inside, though he manages to brake at a very, very late point, especially for a non-Porsche, and manages to stay in front of me. And the gap has already widened a good bit, and you can see now the Porsche of Kylan Wilson beginning to pressure me from behind. As you see, he's down to the inside of the corner in my mirrors there, putting the pressure on. And this next lap right here, I get 1x again, which as you could see there, I was not very happy with. Then right here, I make a huge mistake. I cut the corner just a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit, and enough to get a slow down penalty, which is one of the worst things that you can do at a track like this, where you have a wide open throttle the majority of the lap. I'm just trying to lift off and hope that it auto serves. This is still a disastrous penalty. As you can see, I'm about 1.3 seconds behind Ramaswamy now, and then after the lifts, I go from there 1.5, 1.6.
1.5 seconds. The car in P1.
And I'm just incredibly disappointed that I allowed myself to make that mistake. And then right here, this lapped car, Joshua, is not going to make things better in the slightest. So you can see here, it's a very, very awkward exchange with him getting out of the way. I think he is respectful enough to get out of the way, but then he continues going there and lifts off at the last possible second, forcing me all the way onto the curbs and up into the air. And as you can see now, Kylan Wilson is now very, very large in my mirrors once again. He has a huge run. He's going to go to the outside
Right side.
Doesn't manage to get the move done though, but he is still very, very clear in the mirrors there and able to put the pressure on. So I know that my goal again is to hold on to third position, but I'm just wondering at what could have been, because Ramaswamy is now 3.4 seconds back. That's more than 2 seconds from where we started this lap. And I do manage to reel him in a bit, but nothing really else major happens between this point and that. Colin doesn't manage to make anything of it, and we end up finishing the session in third place, which I will take after everything that happened in this race, but again, just wondering what could have been.
You know what? I think I'll take a podium, honestly. I mean, I know there was more to be had, but you know, podium's not bad. Maybe I shouldn't have battled with Ramaswamy as hard as I did at the start so that he could have maybe caught up to Caleb, and they could have fought, and that would have allowed me to get in and fight with them. But yeah, really good iRating and safety rating race, so can't be disappointed with that, really. Alright, that is what will do it for this video today. A decently good few races, and a increase in both my iRating and safety rating, which I did not expect. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.